Now that we have consolidated information from four tournaments, the four Grand Slams of the tennis world, Wimbledon, French Open, US Open, Australian Open, it's only natural that we put them all together in a way that gives us a totally different perspective. In here, I'm presenting this data in a different manner. I am going by every player who has won this, at least one of these. And remember, that is available to me from the comparative analysis. I know the players who have won every tournament. I know all the winners of these. Some of them might not, for example, have won Wimbledon, but they have won at least one of these tournaments. And then we can see, I'm presenting it. I'm looking at how many times they won Wimbledon, French Open, US Open, Australian Open, and finally the total of all this. So this tells me, look, Novak Djokovic has won 24 Grand Slams in all, mostly, I mean, a large number of them being, let's say, Australian Open. Nadal 22, 14 of which are French Open. I mean, these are really incredible numbers. Uh, Federer 20, 8 Wimbledon, 6 Australian Opens, and so on and so forth. In this video, we'll see how we get this information. In fact, like I said, all of this is already present in our project. We just have to put it together in a nice way and present it in a, let's say, clear way as we are doing here. Now we know that, all of this information actually exists. And in fact, we do that information within the analyze function. However, since remember, variables inside a function are local, I don't have access to those, let's say pieces of information outside the scope of the function. I can fix it by having my analyze function also return to me the winners info list, because that contains for every tournament a consolidated player centric view of the tournament, how many times this player has won it, in which years, and so on. So I'm going to do that first. I'm going to get into my analyze function. And over here, I'm just going to say, okay, please return to me the winner set, the empty winner set, all right. But please also return to me the winners info list. Now, in order to make this, let's say, complete, I will have to go to my function calls. Notice now all of them are indicated in error here. So I'm just going to say, well, Wimbledon, say Wimbledon uh, winners list is also being returned. Of course, I need a comma over here. So Wimbledon winners list. Now I'm just going to get similar lists from all these functions. So let me call them the way, so that I can see what they mean. Say French Open winners list. Then I'll get, say, US Open winners list, and I'll also get the Australian Open winners list. So I just call it a US Open winners list. Now, theoretically, I could go and access each of these individually, but it's better for me to consolidate them all in a single data structure. So I'm just going to create a master winners list. I'm just going to say winners list master. I'm going to set it to an empty list to start with, but I'll go and append all of these to the master winners. So I just go and say master winners dot append. Basically, Wimbledon winners list. I have to just do it a little bit carefully. Say French Open winners list. So two more of these. Basically, I will go and get to my winners list. Say US Open winners list. And finally, I'll add to this the Australian Open winners list. So that's AUS Open winners list, right? So basically, all my lists become part of this master list. This itself is a list of lists, which means it's a list whose items are all lists. Mind you, these lists are lists of dictionaries. So, it's a kind of complicated data structure right now. But we will run the code until here to see what's going on. When I run this piece of code, the thing that I'm interested in the most is this winners, list master. Let's first see the type of this. I expect this to be a list because, we created that with the square brackets. And indeed, that is the case. Now, if I were to look at, let's say, all its items, so let's say, for example, winners list master. If I look at, let's say, the 0th item, well, that's basically the Wimbledon, winners info list. Next, like if I look at item 1, that is going to be the French Opens, and so on and so forth, right? So basically, all the lists of dictionaries that we had for different, let's say, different tournaments have all been consolidated into this winners list, right? Now, we now need to get the set of people who have won this tournament at least once, and that's again possible if I get into my comparative analysis. Right now my comparative analysis does not return anything, but I can just tell this guy to return me, for example, winners, either or. Remember, either or is those which have won won at least one tournament, right? So they've won maybe um, let's say the Wimbledon or the French Open, or perhaps both, or perhaps let's say even more tournaments. So I just return this again. The place where so I need to be careful here. So I cop, so I'm going to create a new set here called winners. Let's say uh, maybe I'll just call it, let's say, winner set is this. Now remember, that's a set. So I'm making it return the set of people who have won at least one tournament at least once, right? Now, like I said, the next target is to analyze for these tournaments. I'm going to create a list, to keep track of the names of the tournaments. So that they are basically Wimbledon, um, you know, French Open, French Open, say US Open, and finally I have a US Open. So these are my four tournaments. Now again, notice the order of these lists is exactly same as the way I have added the big lists into the master list. So the order of the tournament names is logically just exactly that, right? Now all of this I'm doing so that my code remains concise and not very repetitive, because repetitive codes are prone to mistake. Now, just like earlier, I'm going to create a list of dictionaries called, let's say, Grand Slam Info. I'm going to keep this as an empty list. I am going to look at all the winners for winners, say for winner in winners, say set. Remember, these are the set of people who have won this at least once. I'm going to look at each one of them, let's say, one by one. I'm going to create a dictionary here, an empty dictionary called summary. Um, Now, remember, the summary has to come for all these four tournaments, right? So I can run a for loop here. I can say for KK in range 4, because there are four tournaments that we are looking at. I will write my favorite statement, which is selected is equal to, chosen for, chosen in winners list master KK. Now remember, this is running as part of the for loop. So basically we're saying, well, KK is 0. Go and choose Wimbledon winners list. KK is 1. Go and choose French Open winners list, and so on. And the item that I go and choose is where the chosen, say, name is equal to the winner. Now, exactly what we had done earlier. So I'm just finding out the right list and figuring out where this person's name exists, because remember, the information is to be extracted for that player. Now, having done this, I start populating my dictionary called summary. So I just call it, let's say, name is equal to, so the name is the winner. Now, it's possible that the player has not won this tournament at all. For example, some player may not have won Wimbledon, may not have won French Open, but might have won, let's say, the US Open. So it's very much possible that when I look at this, this, let's say, list comprehension, I may end up with an empty list. So I must take care of that situation. If that happens, so basically I just go and say if len of selected is, say, equal to 0, that means the player has not won this tournament at all. Well, in that case, I must put in the summary, for example, for Wimbledon 0 or for French Open 0, and I can just do that by saying summary, say, tournaments, say KK is equal to 0. That's very logical, because I have never won this. So I'm saying, okay, look, let me put this as 0. Now again, notice, because of this, these lists, the way we have created, this code is becoming somewhat more concise. Otherwise, we would have go and explicitly say somebody Wimbledon is 0, somebody French Open is 0, and this will be very repetitive code, prone to errors, right? So of course, this helps to sort of keep the code a bit cleaner. Now, having done this, obviously the next question is what happens if indeed the player has won this tournament? Well, that will be my else condition. And indeed, if that happens, I'm going to just say, okay, look, the summary for that particular tournament is nothing but the number of times that the player has won this. And how do I get that? Well, I can look at the let's say first item of selected. So there's only one selected item if it's not 0, and I can go and look at its times 1. Remember, that information already existed for us. So I just go and look at that particular times 1, and that becomes my summary. Um, Now, having, let's say, done this for all the four tournaments, I am going to create one more item on my summary, one more key on my summary, that is all, which is kind of sum of all these four. And basically, all I'm going to do is that for KK in range, say 4, I will go and say, well, look, summary, say all, is nothing but I just keep adding all the summaries that I have for the different tournaments. So basically, for let's say French Open, for Wimbledon, US Open. So starting with let's say KK0, Wimbledon, then French Open, US Open, Australian Open, and basically I just do tournament, KK. Now again, think through the data structures that are going on here, how your code is becoming flexible, quite readable, and quite powerful as well, right? It's doing a lot of things using say combination of dictionaries, lists, and so on. So this is a dictionary. Tournament is itself also, this is called tournaments. That's why there's an error here. So I just get my tournament. Now, of course, I will go and append all of this, into my Grand Slam info. So Grand Slam info dot append, exactly like what we had done. So summary is now a dictionary. Grand Slam info becomes a list of dictionaries because I go and append the summary into this Grand Slam info. Now, having done this, so that happens inside my for loop, but I get out of, so I looked at all the winners, I get out of the for loop, I just go and say Grand Slam info sorted, and the way I sort it is using the sorted function, and I do it by saying, okay, look, sort for me the Grand Slam info, use key, again, we can use lambda over here, so, to simplify things, X going to X, let's say all. So, I will sort it by the descending order of people. I mean, how many times I won the tournament. And I'm going to say reverse is equal to true. So that makes it descending order. We have seen this before. And of course, having obtained all this, I'm going to just say, well, print, say, table, uh, print table, the Grand Slam info sorted. And I think this should be really about it, right? So essentially, I can put some comments over here, say consolidate, the data. So all the tournaments are here. Basically, player never won. Player did not win this. There's a small little mistake over here. It should be summary all is 0. So I initialize it to 0, and thereafter I keep adding this. When I run this piece of code and I look at my analysis.dat all the way to the end, in fact, I have a very interesting summary available. Novak Djokovic, like I said, has won this 24 times. Federer has won this 20 times, and so on and so forth. So this gives us a completely, let's say, like a bird's eye view of what has been going on in all the analysis that we have. Of course, we can also see things, sometimes people have won, let's say, a lot of times Grand Slams, but they have, for example, never won. Jamie Connors, for example, never won a French Open. Ivan Lendl never won a Wimbledon. I mean, just an interesting observation. But obviously, these are exceptionally, talented and exceptionally, let's say, driven people, and that's why they motivate us, and inspire us all to do better, right? So, it's been a long journey. We've done a lot of enhancements, but I hope you're seeing the picture here, how, taking an activity, taking it to a logical point, building these enhancements, makes it so much more fun to program. Byte, we learn Python programming through such fun activities. Look at our website, www.ybyte.in, and enjoy programming. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye bye.